No, I said his power level's over 9,000. Yeah, it's probably 10,000.
Look at me. I'm a man in my 30s, and for some reason, men my age and older have spent months upon months obsessing over one 2025 movie. And that is, of course, the Disney remake of Snow White. Right off the bat, I know Rachel Zegler is annoying, and this movie is not good. But by no metric should this movie now be lower rated than Dragon Ball Evolution. People complain about who they cast as Snow White in this movie. This is who they cast as Goku. What are we doing here with this movie of all movies?
When am I not crying?
The movie Snow White, I'm not saying it's good. It's messy, it's weird, it's boring, but it's also a completely average movie that is in lockstep with the rest of the Disney live action remakes. On Letterboxd, I gave it a 2.5. Shameless plug to follow me on Letterboxd. And the few changes they did make to the story were changes that didn't bother me as much as they confused me. Why was the love interest changed to a bandit? Why were there any bandits in this movie to begin with? Why do we have 7 bandits and then also 7 dwarfs? Why cast these 2 leads specifically? Why Gal Gadot? Why did Gal Gadot get a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame? Who lied to Gal Gadot and told her she could sing? Also, what does sticking your face in a bowl of water and ice legitimately accomplish? And why did he rub that banana peel on his face at the end? I don't know.
I saw the logo and I went, that's my name. Snow White's up there.
Much like with Captain Marvel and other Disney properties, the neckbeards can't grow beards and has beards, but hair looks like pubes. Beards. Came out from under your beds, out of your closets, and left the hedges just outside your window to make endless videos about Snow White. I'm sorry, did I say white? I meant Snow Brown. You see, the Snow White controversy was a controversy because of woke. You guys know woke, right? Everything, and I mean everything these days, is so woke. Woke.
I love that description. It's perfect.
I'm not a political guy. I just don't care, honestly. And I do, however, genuinely hate the people who can't stop interjecting politics into literally everything. But cards on the table, I don't actually know what woke means at this point, and I'm too scared to ask. But when it comes to this movie, the most annoying voices on the internet deem this movie woke, and so woke it became. And then it became about back hair for a brief second, which was weird. But now it's back to being about woke. Woke.
Also the transition for the old hag.
So the big Snow White controversy started and kind of ended with Rachel Z, this handsome woman, who I personally don't find attractive, but I'm a 6 at best, so who am I to judge? But she was cast and people were mad she wasn't white because in the original, you see, she was white. And her name was Snow White, and I'm white, and this matters to people because life is hell, we are in hell, and the only movies they play in hell are Disney live-action remakes. You're genuinely going to sit there and tell me that this Snow White movie was worse than the Mulan remake? No, it just wasn't. That Mulan remake was god-awful.
Snow White is running for president.
I'm launching my campaign.
The controversies continued when Peter Dinklage, aka the Dink, aka the Toxic Avenger, went on the WTF podcast and basically called out Disney for remaking Snow White with the dwarves and talked about how casting Zegler was progressive, but, and I quote, making that backwards story about 7 dwarfs living in a cave together. What the F are you doing, man? Have I done nothing to advance the cause from my soapbox? I guess I'm not loud enough. End quote. First off, the 7 dwarfs didn't live in the cave, right? They worked in the caves together. They lived in that beautiful cabin in the woods that Snow White randomly finds and then falls asleep in, which, side note, why do so many old stories have people, mostly women, randomly finding houses in the woods and then just deciding to take naps in them? Also, is that where Robert Downey Jr. got that idea from? Was he just a big Goldilocks fan We may never know. Are mining for diamonds and living in nice houses in the woods dwarves stereotypes? In the original movie, legitimately, what do the dwarves do that are offensive to humans with dwarfism? You can't have work friends that all live in a house together and then carpool to work together. If anything, this part of the original movie aged the best. In this economy, the dwarves are all of us and we are all of them. The dwarves, if you think about it, are just the 1930s version of the show Workaholics. And you gotta be fresh.
Gotta be fresh.
So after this backlash, Disney in February of this year revealed the dwarves would be CGI dwarves voiced by non-dwarf actors using motion capture for their performances. And a bunch of actors with dwarfism who weren't the Dink were pissed off at the Dink that he basically got their jobs taken away from them. So in this lose-lose situation, everyone lost. Fun. But now let's get back to the real star of all the controversy, good old Rachel Z, the internet's current most hated celebrity. That is until the next Disney remake. So little girl from the upcoming Lilo and Stitch movie, you better keep your politics to yourself and shave your back, or you are going to be in for a world of pain.
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that
She's
is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
Wow. I mean, where is my pitchfork? If those comments aren't worthy of being shit on for years on end, then I don't know what comments are worth that. Because no, she wasn't good in the movie, but no one was good in the movie. It was an average to below average movie. If you said it was bad, I wouldn't argue with you. And yes, Rachel Zegler does seem annoying in real life. I'm not disputing that. She won't stop saying annoying things. You know, like most actors or women. Or men. Weird time to take a drink. The other people bringing controversy to this movie who rightfully deserve all the hate and then some is Gal Gadot, the newest recipient of a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, once and for all proving that getting a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame means nothing. Like, literally nothing. Also, apparently you don't need to be a good actor to achieve success in this business. You just need to be attractive to succeed in Hollywood and get cast in Disney movies. But we all know that. It's why Josh Gad is so famous. Obviously. Look at that face. Without diving into the politics of it all, the controversies continued with fans calling to boycott Gal Gadot movies due to her pro-Israel stance, which was a shocking stance for her to take until you realize not only did she serve in the Israel Defense Forces, but she is a former Miss Israel. Runner-up in that contest, Josh Gad. I knew he could do it. But then a couple months after that, Zegler reinforced the stance she had long held about being pro-Palestine, saying, and I quote, "I can't watch children die. I don't think that should be a hot take." Which apparently it is in 2025, depending on what side of the whole Israel-Palestine argument you were on. Remember when this video was about talking about a movie made for kids about a poison apple and they were singing dwarves and then CGI animals helped you clean your house? Good times. Zegler and Gadot said a bunch of non-political stuff and then they wouldn't stop saying other things and the premiere got scaled back. And now finally we can talk about the actual movie for 5 minutes and then I can go drink and watch Lady Ballers, aka the only good movie to come out in the last 5 years, because that thing is definitely not woke. The currently 2.1 rated IMDb posting of the Snow White synopsis reads as follows. A princess joins forces with 7 dwarves to liberate her kingdom from her cruel stepmother, the evil queen. Except in this version of Snow White, the dwarves do nothing, the bandits do nothing, and most importantly, Snow White does nothing. I was messaging my friend after this movie, and she thinks about movies the same way all the YouTubers I despise do, which once again is just saying everything is woke. Hi, Jess. I know you're watching this. And she just kept saying about this movie, Snow White is a girl boss. Snow White is a girl boss, which is what she was told and kept repeating ad nauseum to me. And then I finally had to tell her that in the movie, Snow White isn't a girl boss. because she doesn't do anything in the entire movie. And then her literal one shining moment is where she devises this plan that almost immediately leads to her being shot in the head, and instead leads to her love interest being shot with an arrow and almost dying from it. But she still eats the apple, she still dies, she still gets kissed, and then her triumphant moment is that she remembers the guards' names and she was nice to people. That's it. All she does in the whole movie. So in this remake, the whole who's the fairest of them all is kind of rebranded. I personally think for the better. It's meant to be, you find out at the end of the movie that it means who's the fairest of them all inside and out, which as a father and for a kids movie is a lot better message to me to provide to kids than just being the hottest person wins. And this movie kind of shifts the focus to Snow White's kindness, making that her kind of best trait. And honestly, that was the only change of the movie that really worked for me. I, of course, like the dwarves, and I kind of like the ending where the queen got sucked into the mirror, even though that scene in retrospect made no sense considering why would the kingdom turn on her and then immediately let her run back into the kingdom. But everything else outside of the original songs feels very cobbled together. The love story forms way too quickly. The bandits are introduced and then 2 scenes later completely disappear from the movie until the end. And my theory is that Disney tried to make this movie without the 7 dwarfs, who were going to be replaced by these new 7 bandit characters. But I'm assuming the movie didn't work at all, so the filmmakers went back in and added the 7 dwarfs after the fact, but still left the bandits in because the love interest is a bandit. And then you have 7 instead of, you have 14 people instead of 7, and then 12 of them do nothing, except at the end, one of them shoots a crossbow once, and then the dwarves are randomly inserted into one shot at the climax of the film. And then everybody patted themselves on the back for piecing together this Frankenstein's monster as if they successfully did it. But of course, Zegler, the titular Snow White, gets most of the hate coming into this movie. But both in real life and in this movie itself, Gal Gadot is the real villain. She is absolutely awful in this movie, and Zegler isn't a bad actress, and she's obviously a great singer, but Gal Gadot is both a bad actor and somehow a worse singer. She has this part in the movie where she has her big villain song that is so bad. My wife and I literally turned to each other during that scene and without words both simultaneously eye rolled. Last little thing that I've been thinking about the most from this movie was the main bandit love interest gets locked in a dungeon with the huntsman at one point during the end of the movie. And the huntsman and him, not only do they pull the chain off the wall, but the very next scene is just the bandit escaping through a tunnel under the castle. We don't see him leave the cell or how he escapes the castle himself. He just breaks the chain and then is immediately on his horse riding to kiss his dead girlfriend, love interest, whatever. So yeah, that was weird. It was so abrupt too. It like happened within the span of 2 seconds. It was so weird. My final thoughts are the expectations for this movie were low, right? But anyone saying it's worse than they thought it would be is completely lying to not only themselves, but anyone they say this to. This movie was bad and completely forgettable, but it wasn't offensive or some girl boss woke reimagining of the Snow White story. The changes were weird, minor, but still weird. The new songs were average. The restructuring of the plot made the film drag a lot more than the original. And the new characters added were as pointless as every other dwarf not named Doc, Grumpy, or Dopey. So overall, it's a bad movie that hopefully we can all stop talking about. I mean, for the love of God, can we please stop talking about this movie? It's been literally years of people bitching about this movie. We thought it was bad. It's bad. It's not as bad as people are making it out to be. There's literally been worse Disney live action remakes than this movie. But of course, because of the actresses involved, we have to all pretend like this is the worst thing since Dragon Ball Evolution. It's not. Go back and watch Dragon Ball Evolution. You will be begging to watch Snow White again.